They kept him in a lab, or to be more precise, a glass tube, wired from head to toe and pumping his veins with such hot steroids that it burned his hair off. He was the darling test monkey in a zoo of war machines, biological superweapons who could ruin armies with a simple fetch command. Apex by every means of the word, killer by every ounce of the blood-dripping definition. Decades were spent honing every drop of the butchery, this much chemical X and that much genome splicing in this exact spot. Dozens of misled men died in the most horrendous of lab accidents, their bodies rebelling and turning inside out, from no longer being able to tell what was actual self and what was alien and wrong. There came a time when it was thought impossible. No man can handle this. It's simply too much. Then Omega happened. The day a man finally synthesized into the ultimate weapon, when he was birthed out of the metal tube and breathed his first breath. A crowd of crying engineers circled the sticky scene like stadium lights. He was lying still on the cold metal floor, naked with tubes coming out of every muscle and wires attached to the end of every nerve, but breathing. He was breathing in the rancid, alchemical air of success. A man who survived the brutal cycle of biological dogfighting. A wiped, infantile mind with a physical capability of 10 tanks. They named him the Omega. Phase 1 done. Years of trial and error on the human body finally resulted in a successful host. Next was training. Brainwashing the clean slate they created, and making sure that he knew his bloody purpose, and that he was loyal to them. He was to be the best attack dog, the apex of human combat, and a living, breathing one-man army that could abolish national armed resistance in a fortnight. Languages, tactics, survivalism, he would have everything. Would he need to know trigonometry? Maybe, if he needed to create weapons, do it. How about philosophy? It could be used for infiltration. Put it on the docket. Omega, one scientist said from behind his clipboard, looking at the developing weapon like one does a growing child. What is your opinion on helicopter flight? It was idle bullshit, just meant to test Omega's brain on every single facet that it could be tested on. The scientists were becoming consumed by the attitude of their creation, and relished in flexing its capability on all ranges of exams. Rotorcrafts are unnaturally unstable due to their extreme motion coupling, and inherit aeronautical challenges, though they make up for this in high versatility and incredibly precise flight controls. The scientists looked at the wall-mounted camera with a self-satisfied grin. They hadn't even taught him rotorcrafts yet. This was all simply due to his deep understanding of other fields and his innate ability to cross-reference necessary knowledge. Another mark for the Omega. How to test him further. It is going to be extreme, but you must stay talking, the engineer said, while fixing Omega onto what can only be described as a saddle-strapped ICBM. Omega could recite any knowledge they asked, and he could survive extreme physical damage. Explosions, high-G halts, gunshots, all of it was nothing to him. So how about strapping him onto a rocket and seeing if he can stay calm in an absurdly physically demanding environment? Sounding good. Fund it and ship it. The rocket launched. 3Gs, 4Gs. He was blistering into the sky and slamming into gravity like a pancake. Omega, report. A calm and wonderfully relaxed voice talked over the horrendous roar of rockets. The sky looks wonderful from up here. I can see some stars. Brilliant, he can't be stopped. Omega, how do you feel? Can you recite the Constitution for us again? I feel inspired. That was a curious thing to say, but either way he recited the opening paragraph of the Constitution without as much as a hiccup. And as the rocket lost fuel and nosedived into the Earth, Omega made one last observation before ejecting. Thank you for showing me this. The statement made waves throughout the bureaucracy. Thank you. Omega was a weapon. He shouldn't feel the need to thank anyone for anything. He was well-tempered, honed steel meant to mold into any killing device needed, not some emotional, fleshy human thing. Emotions were only there as a calculated tool, not for anything more. He needed to be rid of that. They added it to the docket, but there was no time anymore. War had broken out in some far-off foreign land, a war that was of strategic importance for the government and required immediate action. Perfect time for the New Age nuclear human. But something was wrong. Brief after brief, Omega sat obediently and internalized his mission. Infiltrate the standing government, train rebels, and in 1 month's time overthrow the government and establish a loyal dictator. But his answers to questions were strange and nebulous. Omega, do you feel confident in the mission? The weapon looked starry-eyed up to the sky. I can only hope. What? What did that mean? Omega, can you do what needs to be done for the country? He nodded. I will do what needs to be done. It was too late to be picky. Every diagnostic and every test they ran pointed to an armed and loyal Omega. His words didn't matter. That was just hiccups from all the zany training that the eccentric scientist put him up to. No problem. Send him out. Omega struck. He was released into the country as an undercover insurgent, all while the military hairs could only sit and pray. Though they didn't have to sit for long. Already? By God, it's been 5 days. That's all it took. In under a week, Omega had infiltrated, raised an army, and taken over the local government. The high-up brass hats were ecstatic. It was such a clean incision that the word couldn't even tie back to them. It was like they had access to a nuke without the drawbacks of knowing who had fired it. So, why not use it more? Omega, this country is important to the country. I need the same operation. Again, under a week. Amazing. Now this one. Understood. No extra words needed. In 2 months, the small governments of the world had a wardrobe change. It was wonderful. All of these dictators loyal to them. They were on small cloud 9. The world was lined with their pawns to use and move however they needed. But then some strange things started popping up. What do you mean, no oil? The whole reason for that operation was to get cheaper oil. The whole deal was that we would get a price cut. I'm sorry, sir, the confused and worried assistant said. The country has renounced oil production. A couple of days later, another loyal dictator made a change of heart. Then another, and another. No more sweatshops, no more free labor. What in the world was Omega? They sat him down in a cold and white room, a small army of generals and scientists surrounding him. Omega, what have you done? Straight-faced and without hesitation. What was needed? Like a flock of fighting birds, they all squabbled. Then one bald-headed, star-sprangled man leaned in and asked, Have you betrayed us after all? I have done what is needed. It was over. Omega was an epic failure. All of that money and time, all for some strange broken toy to be produced. You know what it was. Too many of those high-minded scientists around him. That was the problem. But they couldn't start from scratch. Omega surviving the chemical apotheosis was a miracle, a 1 in a million. No. They were going to have to wipe his brain and start from scratch. This time only letting him be trained by true military leaders. He needed to be a real sword, not some poetic pen. Sirs? A paper pusher had entered the conference room and interrupted the all-important planning process. What? Yelled one man. Omega, he's taken one of the jet planes. What? Who let him out? How did he start the plane? All of the questions were all too late. Omega had convinced Etgar to let him out of the room, and all on his own he started up one of the experimental jets that were being developed on base and took off into the sky. The scientist already knew what he was doing. It's too late, one said to the room. He's gone. The generals couldn't take it. One screamed in rage. Gone? We'll get him when he comes down. Recover the body. He's sturdy enough. He's not coming down. Omega said goodbye to the world as his fuel-sputtering craft cast him away on an arcing escape trajectory. He'd calculated the numbers long ago, all the way back to when he was first allowed to see the grandeur of the Earth from space. He was sure that the military heads would be scrambling to make another one of him, but it would be too late. By the time they find another capable body, militaries would be gone. The small countries he'd trained and armed were already activating his plan. The Omega. The end to human squabble. They were already united, and he suspected that in under a year, the whole world would see the writing on the wall and join them. His oxygen alert beeped. That was okay. He was happy for the Earth to be his last view. He might not remember his life before being Omega, but he always liked to imagine it was a quiet one. One where he enjoyed looking at the stars on lazy, dimming afternoons, and smiled at the simple sky. Oxygen depleted. Oxygen depleted. He did what needed to be done. Time to finally fulfill his name and bring Omega to an end. He died smiling.